4. All right, we're rolling this Freedom Phil. Like, subscribe, and live from the survival pod. You know, I just want to talk about at any price, housing and the way the world's set up is designed to screw you out of your prosperity. It really is. And I'm not saying you got to do as I do, because a lot of people get all defensive, like, but I'll be real about it. If you really sit down and think about it, the way 30-year mortgages are set up, the way the entire system's set up, and set up to where if you want to live off grid, they go out of their way to make it to where you can't. A lot of places, they hate the idea that you're living in a van. They hate the idea that you live in a little tiny home. Some places are cool with it, but most places, they make it prohibitive to where they will show up. Some county jackass will show up. And a lot of times places that will generally allow it, then one day the Kens and Karens attack. And they sick the law upon you for what? Daring not to get screwed on an interest payment? That's what I'm going to talk about. Freedom Phil, like, subscribe. And hey, as I always say, one of the parameters of my channel is if you show up and the first thing you say is hi, or some other stupid shit, then yeah, no. I'm going to refer to you as a retard. And this is another one of the many reasons that I say this channel is not for children. It's not for children, and stop trying to farm off your parenting to a fucking screen. Be a real parent. Stop being a shitty parent. But then we're talking to, humans. So what do you expect? I thought about this the other day when I was watching this, traditional housing technique. They were building a rocket mass heater, a thermal mass heater back in, the 50s or, back in the old West. And people are like, he's using way too much stone. He doesn't need that much stone. Oh, he's building it all wrong. And it was showing how this guy basically used like a small percentage of wood compared to everybody else that was getting screwed that winter. And so, middle of one of these videos, this ad comes on and says, this community for only $700,000, starting price $700,000. I'm like, $700,000 for a box? $700,000 for a house. It's a box you shower, sleep, and shit in. That's what it is. That, to me, that's just insane. That for a box. Well, property, location. I don't give a shit how you try to convince me that. And people that sit there and use that lame line year after year. Well, you see, a house is a great store of investment. No, it's not. It's not. Unless you pay cash for your house, it is not a good investment. If you took the same amount of money and put it into the market making 10%, like let's just say $700,000, you put it into the market and it's making 10%. That's $70K every year that poof goes in your wallet. Hell, after a little bit of time, if you're doing the minimalism thing like I do, I'm not saying you got to do it, but I'm saying it works really well. If you're doing the minimalism thing, where I can live off less than $200 a month, $30 for a cell phone, for unlimited data, and about $30 for insurance. That went up $5 because it changed states. And let's see, $15 for laundry, $20 for gas. That's the base load. After that, let's say $100 for food, assuming that I just don't go to a food bank. And I tell people never feel bad about going to a food bank, because literally we waste 30 to 40% of the food in America, and the poor in America are fat. You should never feel bad about getting free food. That store got a tax deduction for giving it away versus a small tax deduction for throwing it in a dumpster. If it made more sense for them to throw it in a dumpster money-wise, they would do that. They're not doing this out of charity. Don't be fooled. You should never feel bad about getting some of your money back. The farmer gets a tax deduction. Everybody along the way, all the processors and truckers and all that, they're all getting tax deductions. So why should you feel bad about getting some food that was otherwise going to end up in the garbage, right? But side notice on that aside, why do they make it so hard for people? Like if you buy some land, even in some of these middle of the nowhere places, there's county laws where they could just show up, county or state laws where they could, if they don't like you, if they feel any certain way about you, they could show up and say, well, this is not a habitable structure. Says who? Like I'm in my 80s Ford van. I'm happy. I've got solar power. I go to town occasionally for water. Sometimes I just go down to the river and take a bath. I do that quite regularly, actually. I love doing it. And I'm feeling good. If I had like something more normal, like I had like a pop-up canopy or something, like one of those, pop-up tents, I could just build a bathroom in there, composting toilet and all that. If I'm living, how can you tell me that this isn't a habitable situation? How can you try to tell me that if I'm currently doing it? And the answer is no. They're just telling you that you can't live this way. Like, those situations way back in the day where someone would have the restaurant or the business down below, the shop down below, and live up top. Why don't we see more of that? Like in the cities, that makes total sense. The first couple levels, 2 or 3 levels, could be like a shopping center. And then up above, you could have people living, maybe even a school in the same damn building. Why do they make it to where you got to not only have, like, let's say you had a couch in the back office, like you had the shop, and then in the back you had like a couch, like a hide-a-bed. If you had a shower in your business, why couldn't you just sleep back there? Well, this is not a habitable structure. If you have windows that you could just get out of in the back, just the same as the requirement you would need for a house, why can't you do that? And the answer is they not only want you having a business, but they want you having a house, and they want you having a car, so you have to drive the car to work. Well, wait a minute. What if you were like some tech worker and you had like Starlink or whatever? Like out here, we're getting 5G. I'm in the middle of nowhere and I got better internet than I generally have. I have the internet back in the little town where I own the house. And for those of you like, you don't own a house, well, you're a retard. You can actually see the videos of me and my brother-in-law back when we were remodeling it way back in the day. In fact, when I say 22-inch thick walls on the main of that house, I'm not kidding, But why is it you have to have a house? And the answer is so you'll be stuck paying for it. And if you're stuck paying for it, then you can't invest. The cheaper you can live, like where I can live anywhere from $100 to $200, maybe $300. Let's go crazy, $300 a month. I can live off less than $5K a year. And if I'm driving truck, I can make $80 to $100K per year driving for a company, like a lowball company, $80K. Now, so you figure live in a state with no state income taxes, and then figure in let's say $10,000 for the man for the federal government. Find ways to claim to pay even less, and $5,000 to live. You still got $85,000 to work with. Now, how long would it take you to have your retirement completely invested if you actually did that? So we're talking 7 to 10 years. You would have. Like if you're living as cheap as possible, whether it's trucking or, you're doing van life while you're a tradesman, or you live like, you got a tent in someone's backyard. Why is it if it's your backyard, you can't put a tent up there? Well, you can't have people living in tents in your backyard. It's my fucking yard. Well, the city code says. So if my kids are just camping out back because they're having a sleepover, that's fine. But if I have a relative who parks a van or an RV or has a tent and they're trying to get back on their feet, no, you can't do that. And the answer is they want you paying as much as possible. They want you paying out the majority of your life. And this is part of the reason, between the cars and the interest rates on that, what's the credit cards these days? About 25 to 30% interest rate. Now, if you pay it off every month, it's not such an issue. But a house, let's say a $500,000 house, all the things that they tell you that matter slow you down. Like if you really view the house as an investment, well, how much money is it really making you? Well, you could argue it saves you money because you don't have to pay rent. But how much more money would you have in your pocket if you weren't paying any of it? Huh? If you were doing an at-home work job and you're out in the middle of nowhere with a Starlink, how much money would you be saving? Just like when I drive truck, how much money am I saving because I don't have to pay rent and utilities? And then you think about cars. If you didn't have to commute to work, would you really need that brand new car? How much are you losing on interest there? I'd say the real war these days, people right, left, socialist, capitalist, whatever you want to say, the real war is interest rates. Like if you have a 6% interest rate, as I've said 12.5 times, on a $500,000, the first year, poof, a 30 grand is gone. Now, if they got that interest rate and made it 2% for your actual home, not a home that you're going to flip, bro, because I'm going to tell you, it's the investor bros that fucked up the housing market back in the day. Bro, I got this plan. I'm going to build a development. And then the market goes to shit and he's like, oh shit, I'm losing everything. Then your house that was artificially inflated in the value to begin with goes back down to what the people really pay, but then nobody has jobs. It was always overpriced. And the thing of it is, that's why they don't like van lifers. That's why they don't want somebody who's parked in your backyard. They don't want you living in a tent somewhere. You know, like, let's just say you live in a decent climate, and maybe your tent's winterized. Maybe you even have a heat source in there, and you have a flat screen TV, you know, a fucking bed, and you know, you're like, yeah, we just get a cord out there, and I pay them. I have one of those little plug-in meters, and you just pay them the fair share. You pay your percentage of water. How much would you be saving? And how quickly could you actually invest and retire? 7 to 10 years. In America, retired. And if you want to get a house, save up cash and go the Midwest, Texas, the South. There's cheap houses. All old people pass on. The kids don't want to move back to their hometown. And so there's an extra house in town. It's been on the market for a long time and it ends up selling. You can get house. I saw a place in Hutchinson, Kansas the other day for 20 grand. It was already pre-gutted out, ready to be remodeled. I saw other houses that were ready to be lived in that were like a 2-bedroom for 50 grand. I find 2 bedrooms every day all over the country for 50 grand. So you save up 100 grand, go buy yourself some old person special, make sure the wiring's good, have the roof inspected, have all the basic inspected, and you got your house. If you've already got your retirement saved up, 7 to 10 years, you didn't have to go to college for that. You could have maybe do the trades. Maybe when you're still in high school, you're learning a trade. Maybe you're becoming an accountant. Something. If you're an accountant, eventually you get to the point where you can work from anywhere. So you could be a van lifer and be an accountant. Just like if you're an insurance salesman, you know, as long as they don't require you to go into the main office and you can work from home. Some of these people that are disabled, some of these people that are like, you know, their legs don't work so well, but their mind and their hands work just fine. You could totally be doing that from anywhere in the country. The point of it is that they don't want you to ever have that level of freedom. And I think the real answer for that is that everybody talks about the 1%, but like, let's just be real about it. They know every time that you become liberated, every time you become free of interest payments, the system and all that shit, that's one more person that could be a threat to them. Competition. If they keep you down with those interest payments, you're never going to be a threat to them. If they make going to college something that costs, instead of like, you know, online college where it can be 4-year education for about what, 16 grand, anybody could make that much money. Anybody. But if they make college something, well, you have to go to college because of their ridiculous requirements for work. If they make it to something to where it costs, you know, $50,000 to $100,000, that's going to slow you down as well. And then, you know, you see the cases where people are like, well, I joined the military, so I get 3 years of my college paid. Hopefully you got a real degree. So you spend, what, 4 years or so in the military? And then you go to college. And the only reason you were really even in the military is because, let's be real, you couldn't afford college. Why don't we do the at-home learning? For the same reason they don't want you to learn at-home learning, for the same reason they don't want you doing van life. And I'm not saying you got to do as I do. I'm just saying when I can live off of $200 to $300 a month, so less than $5,000 a year, and I'm happy, and I'm the only one that matters. Just like in your life, you're the only one that matters. You know, as long as you're not harming anybody else, no actually matters. Like everybody's opinions, and then, well, I would never, none of that shit matters. It's only you. So what I'm getting at with this is, why is it they make it so fucking hard for you to be a free American in the land of the free? Because it is not the land of the free. It is the land of the fee. You know, think about that. Why do we have crappy education K through 12 that doesn't teach you much of anything? Because that's the objective. 13 years in education and your kids are good enough to do what? Flip hamburgers, stock dollar store shelves? Someone who walked across the border, doesn't even speak English, is probably more qualified to do a job than you are. Why aren't you getting taught a real education? Because they don't want you functional. They want you desperate and horny. That's what they want. They want you out there making, they act like, oh, you know, a little accident, oopsie, there's no such thing as an oopsie baby, but they want to make it. But why is it there isn't good, decent birth control for men? Because men are 10 times as sexual as women. It's not that women aren't sexual, men are 10 times as sexual. And they want that guy to get trapped when he's young, so he'll be screwed over with fucking debt for the rest of his life. They want you to be Al Bundy. That's what they want. Now, if you escape the matrix by living minimalistically, if enough people start doing that, and believe you me, there's a ton of people who are not van lifers, that are none of this, that are like literally the people that are like, they're living in RVs in the cities because they can't afford rent anymore. But once some of those people, and I've said it before and I'll say it again, some of those people, when you go back and look at it, once they got that $1,000 a month from the government, like $700 in cash and $300 in EBT, they can't afford rent. They can't afford a house, but they can afford a lot of drugs. So that was a fuck up on the government's part. You should have never stopped paying people for faking crazy. There are legitimate mental cases, but most of them are just people where they're giving them a check so they don't have to put them in jail for committing crimes. Okay? But the thing they can't stand is when a sane, normal person stops playing the game. And to me, housing is just a great example of that. It's a box. It's not an investment. Oh, you could say, is it maybe you could say it's an investment. It's a storage of wealth. No, it's not. Go look at like $700,000 or just simple number like $500,000. Go look at how much interest you'll pay on a 30-year mortgage for that. And then look at how much money that is total, the payment price plus all the interest, escrow, and all that. And then look at that much money if you had taken that and put it in the S&P or bought gold or something. That's an investment. Some people would argue, okay, if you got a vacation rental or something like that, that is kind of an investment, but there's nothing passive about it. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of nonsense, and renters fucking suck. They do. I'm sorry. People are not as quality as they used to be. There's always some lame ass excuse of something and some reason why they're doing some stupid shit. Like, housing is literally a ball and chain. But if everybody's on the plantation, then nobody notices they're a slave. That's just it. And I'm not saying you could do as I do. I'm not saying that. Because if you're happy doing what you're doing, spinning your little hamster wheel of debt, hey, it's your life. Have fun. But I'm showing there's another way out. I'm showing that retirement by 30 can easily be done if you choose to. And I think more and more, the old boomers, the politicians, they don't want that to happen. They want everybody working at 110%. And I'm sorry, but it's ridiculous. You shouldn't work yourself to death. If you want to work, have fun. If you don't, you shouldn't have to. I'm not saying you should be living off the government, but fuck, if you could be retired at 30, would you work the other 40 years? Would you put in that like anywhere from 40, 50, 60 years or work until you're dead? Would you, if you could have been out of the game? If you'd already won the game, would you keep playing it? And the answer is most people wouldn't. And you want to know how I know I'm right about that? Because most people are good, hard workers talking about, I was a hard-working man, blah, 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 until the day they can get that welfare check. To the day they get that Social Security check, and it is welfare. You're taking from one group of people to pay for another group of people. And most people, when you really get down to the taxes, most people think they pay. If you have kids in public school, considering the state I was in before, I think it was like $8,000 or $9,000 per child per year. And the state I moved over to on the West Coast, it's like over 15 grand per student. Most people never pay taxes. They pay in a smidgen here and there, and they receive more in benefits via the government, the roads, all the schools, all the shit, all the things, the prison system, keeping fuckos in jail. Most people never pay taxes, but they keep working and they keep the system going. The system needs you as a slave. That's why when I say I think housing is just a ball and chain. But hey, if you want to wear that, you want to have those golden chains, go with it. It's your life. If you like it, cool. But me, I'm not playing that game. I'm not. And every time someone checks out like I have, the system notices. And the system hates it. And that's why they're trying to get rid of dispersed camping out in the middle of the woods. That's why they make laws to where even when you own your property, some county asshole will show up because they don't want anybody else escaping. They want to keep you on that plantation till the day you're dead. Anyhow, Freedom Phil, like, subscribe, take it easy.